We'll return to this image throughout the session. And it's going to be a really cool, interesting piece of art that we'll be able to send to everybody who has attended today. So look for that in the follow-up email. But with that, I'm going to remove the pin and return back to the main presentation. So here's our agenda for today. We are going to have an icebreaker. We'll have our panelists introduce themselves, an overview of their Artsnow work, and then we will have a Q&A. So folks were able to submit questions, but we'll also have time for y'all today, if you weren't able to submit questions, to ask questions live. And with that, we will move on to our icebreaker.
Thanks so much, Alexia. Today's icebreaker is short and sweet, something to get us started. And it is, what is something that brings you joy? That can be a new hobby that you've started to do. That could be a new piece of clothes that you bought, or a new song that you've listened to that really makes you happy or brings you some type of joy. I think what has brought me joy today was my iced coffee in the morning. Something about a first sip of iced coffee feels really great. And I've also stopped purchasing it at Starbucks. I actually made it today, so it felt even better because I was like, didn't spend $5 on this. So that brought me joy. So go ahead and put your responses in the chat. Hiking and running. The band say shishi. Okay, we gotta listen to that. Something right brain each day. Cyrus said elephants. I love painting and drawing. Allison said music always brings me joy, listening while on my morning walks. Dancing. Chris Rodriguez said my children. Alexia said family and dancing. A lot of dancing I've seen. A lot of people moving their bodies, and which is absolutely amazing and great. Please continue to do so, and especially in this heat, drink water, stay hydrated. But thanks so much for putting those in the chat, and continue to put those in the chat as well. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so here are our panelists. I'm going to pass it over to them to briefly introduce themselves, and following that, they'll have time to share about their Artsnow work. But I'll pass it over to Allison so she can introduce herself briefly.
Good afternoon, I'm Allison Caglia. I'm the founding executive director of Friends of Sacramento Arts. We started in 2019 to restore arts education in the 14 county school districts in Sacramento. And I've been doing fundraising and nonprofit management for 3 decades, primarily in K-12 and arts and culture. And I'm passing it to Kara.
Hi all, it's such a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Kara Goger, and I'm the Executive Director for the Mariposa County Arts Council. I also serve as the VAPA lead for the Mariposa County Office of Education, and I sit on the board of the Californians for the Arts and California Arts Advocacy organizations, which is kind of like the statewide arts advocacy organization, not for arts education, but for the arts in general. And I'm super happy to be here today. And I'll throw it to Madeline.
Hi, my name is Madeline Spencer, and I am I work for Santa Ana Business Council in the downtown district of Santa Ana. I've been there for 8 years. I also am the leader of Placemaking US, and I'm a part of on the board of Community Engagement, which is an arts organization.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to pass it over to Allison to share more about her Artsnow work, successes, goals, etc. So Allison, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, we work with a consortium of the County Office of Education and the Sacramento City's Office of Arts and Culture. Oh, do we want to go back to my slide? There we go, thank you. And so we set up a fund called the Creative Schools Fund. It's modeled after a program in Chicago that, if you look it up, it's about Artlook Map and their organization Ingenuity. Artlook Map works on a database to gather all of the information from the schools at an individual school level to find out exactly where the gaps are in providing arts education. Sometimes districts might know, but individual schools will have a better understanding. So we can see how that, where our landscape is to start from and where we go from there. So we set up a Creative Schools Fund to provide grants to individual schools. So as they participate in the Artlook Map survey program, they get a stipend of $1,000 to spend on their arts programs. So we were able to set that up, and we've launched that with 2 of the larger school districts in Sacramento to gather information on that. So it's a long-term continuing program to work on individual schools and their data. The second one with forging programs with the school leaders. Of course, with COVID, that's been a real challenge. I did meet with the VAPA leaders in the 14 school districts to find out where they're at in their programs, what they need help with, how we can help fund programs that they're doing. We also did a mailing to school board members and superintendents specifically for LCAP work. So we helped to promote and get the community to send letters via email to the board members to make sure that the arts are in their LCAP plans. We're still working on working with the school districts to identify at least 1 board member, and also to add a community member to each of the LCAP committees. So we're still working on that. The last one is increasing visibility of the arts in the district and the county. So we are doing some newsletter work. We've had some staffing hiccups, so we're still working on that one to make sure that we do a newsletter once a month or more, specifically to the school districts and the county leaders. And we also, which wasn't part of our plan, but we've really stepped up and been working a lot on Prop 28. So we've been doing outreach programs, working with the media, and also working with the statewide folks that are promoting Prop 28. We've been to a number of community events where we've had a table and getting signatures when we still needed those. And then we're now working on the public radio station, 2 television channels, and then working to get an editorial endorsement from the local newspaper, as well as an op-ed into the paper. And then this afternoon, actually, I'm doing a Zoom interview for one of the local business publications. So, so that's the update, and we'll be continuing to work on these. You know, it's a lot of seed planting and long-term visioning to really make a difference in the systemic change of arts education provision. That's it for me.
Thanks so much, Allison. Thank you for all of your work and for sharing that. Definitely amazing things going on, and your continued support of the Artsnow program is greatly appreciated. And with that, I will pass it over to Kara.
Thank you. And thank you, Allison. It's really inspiring to hear the work that you're doing, and I'm excited to hear what Madeline's up to as well. Like I said, I work in Mariposa County, and just to give you a little context about Mariposa County, to know where we're at, because I think it informs the work that we're doing and how my approach, or our approach, the Artsnow Mariposa's approach, has been to advocacy for arts education. Mariposa County is completely rural. We're located in the Central Sierra region of California. We're about 30 miles east of Merced, about 80 miles or 70 miles northeast of Fresno, and 130 miles east of the Bay Area. So we're on the western slope of the Sierra, not on the eastern side where Mammoth is. And our location is such that, you know, part of us we're in the Central Valley, and the other half can get really high up in the alpine area of the Sierra region. Yosemite National Park is within our border, and we are home to the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, who is a federally unrecognized tribe that have been here forever. And their presence and their significance in this community really does figure largely into what we do here in Mariposa in terms of arts education. Our county is very small. It's very large geographically, but small in terms of population. We have about 17,000 people in the entire county. We only have one comprehensive high school, but 2 satellite high schools, an alternative education center, and 7 elementary/middle schools. Just to give you a sense of how tiny this is compared to what other people are working on. And because of Mariposa's size and the fact that myself and several other people play multiple roles in terms of supporting both community engagement through the arts and advocating and supporting arts education, both in and out of the classroom, we've sort of had a 360 holistic community approach to advocating for the arts and arts education. So this might look a little folksy and salty from a lot of people's perspective, but I hope there's things you can glean and gather from it, or at least be inspired by as I share. So what I want to talk to you about doesn't start at the County Office of Education level, but it actually starts at the county level. I've been working with the Arts Council has been working with the planning department and the just general county of Mariposa to develop a creative placemaking strategy. It's our county's first cultural or artistic planning or policy document, and it was developed to ensure that arts and artistic practices and community development practitioners deliberately had a seat at the table, and there was an opportunity to integrate art and artistic practices into community revitalization work, including land use, transportation, economic development, corrections, housing, public safety, and education. This plan seeks to center public art and artistic interventions in a way that uplifts and underrepresented voices and narratives, including youth in Mariposa, in a really public way. So while we were developing this creative placemaking strategy, we were also simultaneously working with the County Office of Education to develop a strategic arts education plan. And we deliberately aligned those 2 plans so they work together and support one another, with the creative placemaking strategy recommending that all creative placemaking work fold in arts education elements, and the arts education strategic plan making recommendations that support and align with the creative placemaking recommendations. And this was completely strategic on my part. There's only a few of us doing this work around arts, and so I needed everything to be in alignment. I couldn't do some work over here and some work over here. It needed to all fold together so one thing supported each other. And that's where I think there is maybe some opportunity for alignment if we can all, I often find that everyone's doing similar work, but they're doing it in these little bubbles, but bring it all together. So let's see, when we adopted both of these plans and they were in alignment, it was great because we could get the Board of Supervisors to come support and advocate on behalf of the adoption of the creative place or the strategic arts education plan, and we could get the school board to come and advocate to the Board of Supervisors for the adoption of the creative placemaking plan. So we were getting both of these elected bodies supporting the plans as they flipped and becoming really familiar with it and seeing how they would support each other. When the plans were adopted, we started implementing some of it, and that's where our advocacy work really got to have some traction. And just knowing our community, it's small, so it's not that hard to open an LCAP conversation about, making sure the arts in the LCAP with my director of educational services, because I see her all the time. So what we really needed was public support for arts education and to get that sort of traction with the larger public in Mariposa County. So one of the main recommendations in our strategic arts education plan was beautifying school campuses with public art that was led by student artists and reflected student voice and choice. And obviously that also supports our creative placemaking policy, which is all about public art. And school campuses are public places in Mariposa. They're venues for a lot of things that go on in the community, not just where students go to school each day. So we started the implementation process with a series of student-led murals on campus. And it's not that murals are such an innovative type of public art, but it's something that definitely resonated with our community, and it was an accessible point for our community to really see some, and they're big and they're beautiful. And Mariposa means butterfly in Spanish, and we have tons of butterflies here. And the students, of course, chose to do butterflies. There's multiple things at the elementary school. We have just the wings, and the students stand under the wings as they grow, and it's cute and lovely. And then at the high school, they took a more subversive and divisive play on metamorphosis, and the mural itself is very easy to look at, but there's all sorts of embedded messages in it, which are pretty cool that the students got to like build in. And then when they do their artist statements and talk about it, they get to share that opportunity. But it really, the community just loved it. And like we were able to do serious fundraising and then use these mural projects as a way to like also support the creative placemaking strategy, which also recommends larger murals, which have been very controversial in Mariposa, but people liked what the students did. And so they got all on board the murals, that these bigger murals that, were in the historic district, and, we're going to be new pieces of artwork and not Gold Rush theme and different things. So these two things are continuing to support each other in a really nice way. And because these publicly visible, big, lovely pieces, we now have the school board and the county board of supervisors just supporting everything and constantly asking us, what more can we do? What kind of money do you need to make more of this happen? They get really excited about it. So what we did, and this is not super sexy, but the next thing we did was we developed a creative youth development working group, just so that we were making sure we were serving the needs of students, not just like using them as like these props for supporting arts education. Mariposa has a lot of need. It's a very poor community. And so we really wanted to make sure we were offering a lot of wraparound services for youth, especially youth that were involved in creative youth development programming. And so we've partnered with Health and Human Services, our Human Services Community Development Organization, the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, the County Office of Ed. Let's see who else is involved in this. Several other community organizations, and we brought together Indigenous art or education specialists, creative placemaking practitioners, and we have a lot of youth representation on this working group. And so what this group is doing currently is developing rigorous best practices for creative youth programming in Mariposa, developing multidisciplinary and culturally responsive sets of evaluation instruments to measure the impact of programming, developing the processes and relationships necessary so that anyone working in creative youth development can bring on human services resources for all youth, but especially in terms of workforce development, social emotional learning outcomes, and basic needs. And then we're also piloting more of these mural projects, but instead of murals, they're more artistic interventions, temporary artistic interventions out and about in the county. Again, centering youth voice, exposing a community that largely is retired. It's very white. It's very, very steeped in like this gold rush tropey identity narrative. And so trying to really break that open a bit and expose the many other layers and narratives that are at work contemporarily in Mariposa, including contemporary tribal narratives as told by tribal youth. That's really kind of an interesting spin. Not historic tribal narratives, contemporary tribal narratives here in Mariposa. Let's see, and just making sure that all creative youth programming, whether it's in schools or outside of schools, has a lot of wraparound support for students in terms of human services. And then because of all this foundational work we did with kind of the show-stoppy murals, and then this deeper kind of capacity building with the Creative Youth Development Working Group. And I should say the probation department is what funded the Creative Youth Development Working Group. So that was a good source of funding for us. They're really interested in prevention. So because we were able to build this capacity for creative, all sorts of programming, that for us gave us, we've been able to leverage both of those in our advocacy and really play them off of one another and have them support one another. And now we're swimming in opportunities I have to like be picky at this point in terms of we have to like say no to people all the time because we just don't have the personnel and staff to, or even an amount of kids to like implement all the ideas that are getting thrown as opportunities from the county office of ed or from the board of supervisors or other groups in Mariposa. We are, I should say, one huge element of the creative placemaking strategy at the county level is the integration of narratives around ecological systems and the natural environment, being in Mariposa, being rural, being Yosemite. That's a really big part of our identity. So that, along with creative placemaking programming, is big. So one thing we are pursuing right now is the County Office of Ed has invited our local land trust, the Sierra Foothill Conservancy, and the Arts Council to develop a comprehensive place-based art and environmental education summer camp program that will take place along all of the preserves that are surrounding schools in Mariposa for the expanded learning opportunity program that the County Office of Ed has. So that will be summer and spring camp this year in Mariposa. And that will have a lot of public art and public performances, again, built into it, student-led, hopefully, again, to raise more awareness and get people excited about it. And then more, again, kind of more back in, but on a more everyday basis, the County Office of Ed, Health and Human Services, the Arts Council, and the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation are developing just extensive art programming in and out of the classroom for youth that probably wouldn't necessarily enroll in traditional classroom art programming. Kind of, they're getting credit for school, but they're doing it outside of the classroom or with teachers outside of the class. It's a little bit it's kind of non-traditional. And here we are seeing a lot of human services programming or support wrapped into these programs as well. And at-risk youth are often vilified in Mariposa in a really unfortunate way. So this is an opportunity to really give them a positive platform to amplify their voices, and with support, with mentorship, it's an authentic learning experience for them. Anyway, I could go on and on about all these opportunities. This has been really generative for us, developing these plans together, aligning them, getting both elected bodies in support and kind of thinking they're pushing the other one forward. And now the Board of Supervisors, the county and the school board are kind of competitive to see who's going to support the arts more. It's kind of a little bit of a game going, which is fun. But I think the important thing for us to remember at this time is to make sure that we are staying focused on point, authentically serving the needs of our youth, and not just taking opportunities that people are giving us, but really make sure we're checking in with youth, and that the programming is authentically grounded in the needs and the goals like established by these planning documents in the community themselves. So maybe went over quite a bit, and I'm sorry, but
You're totally okay.
that's what we're doing in Mariposa. So I can pass it to Madeline.
Thank you. That was a very, very cool integrated community approach. So in order to like tell this story a little bit, I just wanted to say that I work in a downtown district. I met the visual and performing arts coordinator who came into the district because we were looking for a small band of students to be able to come up and down our streets of the downtown and add like joy and life, because a lot of the merchants wanted to see the youth. And that led to this whole situation where the two of us together really clicked, and we decided that there was a series of things that we wanted to do, and there was a master plan being done at the city level for the arts, but we were noticing that the kind of engagement just wasn't as authentic as it could be. So we decided to have a series of arts roundtables. And the arts roundtables, there was about 6 of them, led to the community asking for a series of things. One of them was an art registry for the city, also for a heat map that tells where people are getting art, doing art, and making art together. And then also the last thing was a website that hosted where all of the arts institutions and everybody is. So that was like the beginning of this process. And from there, we were able to finish a strategic plan at the school district, which I got to be a part of, which I was very excited. And and we also recognize that through those series of things that people really cared about our youth. And we have around 50,000 youth. It's a predominantly Latino community. 80% of our community is Latino. And there's creativity that lives in all parts of our community. People, art is an active verb in a Latino community. Like everybody is involved in whether music, dance, creating clothing, all kinds of things. So it's everywhere. So one of the very first things though that we started to do was we wanted to break down silos and bridge the gap between city, community, and the school district. So we began to come up with plans, and one of them was to bring students out from the school district and allow people in our downtown district to be able to enjoy like little tidbits of like different programs that they were creating. And as you can see, this was Aladdin in the picture that's on my slide, and this is the youth actually coming to our regular art walk that happens on the first Saturday of every month and showcasing a small part of that performance. And as time has gone by, we have gotten to see many students growing up. Our community has gotten closer in terms of knowing who the students are. And it's not only from like basketball and football and other things, but also from our arts and creativity. We were also able to create a festival for Youth Arts Month during March, which is called Boca De Oro Festival. And we're in our 6th year. And the festival also opened up an initiative in which 18 schools throughout the district now all put in original prose poetry that students create, and they come out and they compete. All 18 schools compete to be a part of this festival each year. So the top folks in the top students chosen are actually in the actual festival itself. And it's really exciting because it's another way that students get to showcase their work, and they've created beautiful videos telling the stories of their city. And one of the things that's been a real priority is to position youth and center them in as the storytellers, as the organizers, as the partners who are advocating for the arts in their community. From that, there's a few other things that we had started, which was I was a part of a leadership team, which was the XQ challenge, where it was a school without walls, where again students got to actually come and for example, I could put together an architect and a student, and they would help to redevelop our alleyways that actually required work. So students and architects together would think of a way to green the alley, and also because we have flooding that happens every year. So they became a part of the creative process of putting together how they would like their city to look, what the spaces would look like, etc. And that's something that also opened up just silos between things. So students are getting interactive in civics of their community. Also, I already told you about LitCon, but there's also this integration started to happen in our regular community events throughout the city. And then one of the things that we were pushing for was that when a couple years ago, what we saw is that in our district itself, there was only the high schools that were being served across the board. And there was about 50% of youth in the elementary schools that weren't getting any arts education. And as of now, this year, one of the most amazing things is we passed an arts equity. Both the school district and the city adopted to be an arts equity district. And that was a great thing that happened. And one of the things that was questioned by our VAPA coordinator was, well, if music is supposed to be for all kids, she wanted to make sure that every single one of our schools had that opportunity. So she started by leveraging the existing music teachers to expand, to make sure that that gap of 50% was taken care of. And she believed that if we really believed that all meant all, that they needed to use design thinking to update the strategic plan. And they were able to accomplish and exact the plan to make music a part of the academic support plan. And they were then able to move and provide music for all of the schools from pre-K through BA. And so right now, that happened, and then funding was brought in, and they started out with just 13 teachers, and now they have 34 music teachers from pre-K through grade 8 that are now teaching. So all of our schools now have music and education across the board throughout the whole district. And that's a huge accomplishment that started with that plan. And then finally, like actually that's everything for now.
Great, thank you. Well, I'll just move on here. This is a beautiful image, Madeline.
I wanted to tell you that, okay, so this is just an example. This young man is Alex Mascaro. He actually, the one on the second to the left, and he came out one day and was busking in our downtown. And it was very interesting because I met him and we said, yes, it's free to busk. You can busk here. He's now become over time the most sought after mariachi group, but he not only plays the mariachi in a mariachi group, he actually plays all kinds of music. He actually went on to create a video, which our community engagement group was able to help fund, that shows about the whole arts culture within the youth in our city. So he created a film, and then he was able to show it at Boca De Oro and share it with everybody. But we learned from his video about where all the youth go after high school to start really integrating into the whole music culture in the place. And there's a place where everybody called the Cool Lab Project, and also Mo Better Mondays, where we have a lot of musicians being born, music like videos being created, all different kinds of things that just expand from there. So we're able actually to trace the pipeline and actually see what's happening with our musicians and people, and be able to celebrate them continuously and put out their new records, put out their new etc. Like, and I would love at some point to have a CD that just shows the music of Santa Ana, because we have so many amazing musicians creating music. Anyway.
Great. And Madeline, I'm not sure if you still would like to share the video. It's up to you.
If there's time, if there's not, you can just move on. But we had a short video just showing you what the Boca De Oro Festival is like, what it looks like.
Great. We can always share it in the chat if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll go ahead and share that in the chat. Well, thank you so much for the overview of all the work that is happening throughout the state of California. It's really wonderful to hear and to have y'all together. I'm going to pass it over to Karina to moderate our panelist questions that we have. So Karina, I will hand it over to you, and we will get started with these different questions.
So the first question for our Q&A session is for Allison, and it is, how did you get started in becoming an arts education advocate?
Okay, so we started back in 2018. The city of Sacramento and a number of other community leaders did an audit of the region about arts and the creative economy. How are arts being supported? Where are the gaps in service, equity, diversity, comparing it to Austin and Denver and other cities. And out of that came a publication called the Creative Educulture Plan, which is on our Friends of Sacramento Arts.org website as a resource if you're ever interested to take a look at that. And of that publication, it came out in late 2018. The number one goal was to restore arts education in K-12, because especially with the fact that we have 14 districts in the county that serve to over 250,000 students, and such a small percentage, especially at the K-6 level, get any arts at all. So, so they then decided to put together a nonprofit. So in January of 19, we had our first board meeting, And it's to work in concert with the County Office of Education and the city, and then the 14 school districts. It's a big, hairy vision, and our mission is twofold. One is advocacy, both at the individual district level as well as the region level, and now state level because we are the state capital, and then also to fund programs to help fund the gap of where the district budgets can't fund. So we will fund teaching artist programs. During COVID, we launched a mental health program that's a really in-depth program called Healthy Hearts and Minds. And it's a program to help children that are in trauma from social isolation from COVID. And it puts together a mental health professional, a mentor, and an artist to work on a weekly basis with students in trauma, to use art as a narrative and a portal to help them heal from social isolation during COVID. So that's one program that we're really looking to expand at all, as well as professional development for K-6 teachers to help them understand how they can integrate art into their daily education. So it's not just a pull-out program, but it's integration as well. So that's how we got started. I'm a one-person shop with 2 10-hour-a-week people that help me with social media and admin, but otherwise it's me and a board. And we're a nonprofit. We don't have automatic funding, so we're lean and mean, and hopefully we'll get some additional government funding. But it's all philanthropy right now. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you for sharing, Allison. So our second question is going to be for Madeline. And it is, what words of advice would you give yourself when you first started your advocacy journey?
Words of advice would be be patient. And things kind of have been a snowball effect. So I don't know that I had any expectations around being an advocate. But I love the work anyway.
Thank you, Madeline. Our third question is for Kara, and it's going to be, what do you think is one of the most important things to know or consider when advocating for arts education?
I think having empathy and understanding whoever you're targeting, who the target of your advocacy is really important. For some folks, you know, press kits and social media kits with statistics, and you know, that's going to work really well. In our case, people needed to see their kids out painting. Like that worked really good. That but that was only with the local advocacy audience. So I think understanding, and then also giving the people that your audience opportunities to actually be involved and empower them. One of the best things we did was play the board of supervisors and the school board kind of. We'd ask one to go advocate on behalf of the other one, because it's so like really, and you know, giving the people that you're targeting opportunity to be deeply involved is also it takes a little more work, but I think that's been successful, and then they feel so much more invested in that, whatever it is you're working towards. And in our small community, it's been really a gate opener or a door opener for both creative placemaking work at the county level and arts education programming at the schools, at the level of the schools. So I think empathy towards your target audience and understanding what's really going to like resonate with them, and then also looking for opportunities to like involve them as soon as possible. If you get any sort of like, yeah, that sounds cool, like, okay, then can you go to the board of supervisors and talk about this? And so that would be my advice or my thoughts.
Thank you, Kara. Our next question is going to be for Allison, And it's going to be, what has been a challenge you overcame in your advocacy journey that has taught you an invaluable lesson?
I think my mantra has been patience in the process. I think it's a long, patient process to change systemically how arts is budgeted in school districts, and to help people understand how the arts is a solution to the problems that the school districts have. So if they have problems with graduation rates, truancy, grade issues, that the arts is not a fun to, it's a have to, in terms of being able to address those problems. It's a learning process of, the other part of it's an interesting challenge is bringing the arts grammar glossary and managing that with the glossary in public education, which are two very different languages. And so how to help bridge that, that gap between all the acronyms in public education with the arts community. So bringing those two together. And I think COVID's, been a challenge, and being patient and grace-filled with the schools dealing with COVID. So when we started, it was only a year before COVID happened, and Sac City Unified, one of our largest districts, half of their principals are brand new this year. So, so just having to be patient in that process of and grace-filled with those teachers and those principals. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Allison. So the next question is going to be for everyone. So if anybody wants to go ahead and share, they can. It's going to be, how have you adapted or utilized the Artsnow program to your community's needs? So the floor is open to anyone.
Well, I can start, and this is more just a thank you to Artsnow for being super flexible as Mariposa took on a really integrated approach. It didn't neatly fit into maybe like a more formulaic kind of model for advocacy, but Artsnow was so down to support it and flexible, and really saw other models of advocacy within it and supported it. And it's given us the capacity to do these initial seeds. It like to even put a group together that was our Artsnow group kind of grew into this creative youth development working group. And I wouldn't have thought to even draw those folks together in the capacity that we've been able to, grow as a result of that like seed that Artsnow planted. Like, I'm very grateful to that. So anyway, I would say that Artsnow really was like this like support that we needed to like build more support and then go from there, and continues to be that support for us. So in that sense, it's been just super helpful.
I can answer in terms of saying that I feel that Artsnow has created a focus around what is needed in arts advocacy, which I previously did not know. And it also expanded my awareness in general and kept me really in tune with what is happening, for example, in my district with local control funding, which is the instrumental tool that was given to even be able to have a visual and performing arts coordinator that's doing the amazing work that's happening in the community. And I've seen a complete transformation of our schools because of that work. So I just say that it's amazing that this advocacy is there, and there's so many tools being given to really push forward the work and help folks recognize, I guess, as I grew up partially in Montana, so we had a lot of things that I don't see in school districts here, like home economics and woodworking and a lot of robust arts programming. And you don't think of it in urban spaces that maybe there's students aren't getting that creative engagement. And to find out that there are so many schools that are not getting it it really is surprising typically, especially to somebody who didn't know that is going on. So, and I believe that arts are very important to the social, emotional well-being, learning, and just ability as a person to navigate the world and to be able to read the world and what is coming at it. And it gives you that ability to imagine different things. And if we don't have that tool, I don't feel that resilience is capable for young people or adults.
Yeah, I really appreciate Create CA and Artsnow because it brings a statewide focus and a credibility since we are a relatively small new organization. And you know, this voice in the wilderness, new voice. And so to be able to use those resources that Create CA provides and that networking and the credibility that we can then communicate back to all of our different partners and our board. And then also just, you know, the opportunity that Create CA has had in terms of working on Prop 28 and building awareness of that. And also being able to educate people about that Prop 28 is not the panacea, it's a step. Because some people are like, oh, if it passes, does that mean your work is done? It's like, heck no. It's an exciting new step, but it's not solving it all. So, so I just think in terms of being able to utilize Create CA's resources, and I would hope that at some point, maybe Kara, because of your involvement with Californians for the Arts, how we could work with Californians for the Arts on statewide advocacy to change how the requirements at CDE can be mandated, so it's not as easy to cut it out of the district budgets. So that might be a long-term systemic vision that I'd love to see us partner with them on.
Thank you, Allison. Constance, did you want to say something before we move on to the last question?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate meeting people at this forum. You know, my mother was a visual art teacher and I was too. And she always told me to get to our state and national conferences because that's where you grew and that's where you expanded. And since retiring, I haven't had that. And this has replaced it in beautiful ways. I plan to share this recording with the leadership team because the ideas coming out of here are just mind-boggling and incredibly rich. It would take me hours on the internet to find all this. So thank you, Artsnow and Create California, for making this forum possible. It's beyond belief.
Thank you, Constance, for sharing. So we'll be moving on to our last question. This is also for everyone, so it's free to share. The last question is going to be, what has been an impactful moment in your advocacy that drives you to continue this work?
I'm going to share something that's a little different, but an impactful moment in my advocacy was seeing the VAPA coordinator from the school take over an area that used to be a space for all of the violins, all of the musical instruments. And she did this thing where she had to go and figure out if everybody had instruments and had to get rid of a bunch of things and bring in new so that all the schools had instruments. But she decided to take over the space itself. And she had a muralist come in and transform the whole space. And the whole interior of this space says art, which in the school, oftentimes you go to schools, they're very drab and they do not have a lot of color or place. And that has become one of the most popular spaces for everyone to go to in the school. And I just like, to me, I'm just like, the person lives what she's saying and working and speaking, and it comes through and through. And I think that that's such a powerful thing with this work, is that, I mean, you have to show walk the walk and that you're talking, etc. So.
Thank you for sharing, Madeline. Would anybody like to share before we finish?
I can give a quick, I think a transformative moment in my advocacy was when or the Arts Council's advocacy here in Mariposa was when I realized how generative advocacy can be. To advocate for one thing and support it and it becomes successful, it has this ripple effect. So supporting, advocating for arts education through these planning documents, we were building in work for Indigenous educators into that, and so that became part of it. But then in advocating for that, our tribe here in Mariposa doesn't have federal recognition, but supporting those contemporary narratives of the tribal population gives them the documentation that they need to go to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to demonstrate their, significance within the community, which then was generative because they start doing traditional ecological knowledge with youth along areas that need restoration in Mariposa because they have a lot of hazardous fuel loads, which creates for wildfire danger, which then our land trust gets involved. And then this advocacy work just keeps rolling forward, and the thread is pretty distinct. It's not, you don't have to dig really deep to find it. And I have a feeling that when you dig apart, any sort of advocacy effort and successes that are happening in arts education, you're going to be teasing out a lot of other things. You're inadvertently or intentionally advocating for other things as you move along. And so thinking about that in an integrated nature, and when I kind of saw that connection, my mind was blown, and it really made it worthwhile for me to pursue this work in this way.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you everybody for sharing, and I will pass it back over to Alexia.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Just being mindful of time, we are coming close to time, so we're going to skip over the additional questions section. But if you do have any questions or would like to be connected to any of these amazing leaders, please let me know, and we're going to be sending a follow-up email. So if it is okay, I will share their emails in that email follow-up so you can directly connect them. And yes, we can also send the email for the graphic facilitator if that is okay with you, Jada. And I hope that y'all were able to see the beautiful piece of art that has been created from this conversation. And as a reminder, what's up next? We have a intersectionality and being an equitable advocate session happening on 10/6. Then we have a really amazing centering youth voice and leadership in your Artsnow coalition on 10/13. And then lastly, our final session for the Artsnow Leadership Institute is the Artsnow Action Planning session. And a reminder for the Artsnow leaders, please return your leader agreement and fiscal sponsor forms. We need that every single year. So please, please, please send those back to me. And with that, I thank you everybody for your time, for your presence, for your work. It's been a beautiful session, and thank you so much. So I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.